The Supreme Court just dropped a bombshell this month, and 8 specific guns you might own right now are either already illegal or about to become illegal in your state. Nobody is talking about this the way it actually affects you, and that's exactly why we're here today. This isn't a drill. This isn't some far-off future thing. This is happening right now in March 2026. And if you own any of these 8 firearms, you need to hear every single word of this video. Before I break down all 8 guns one by one, let me ask you something real quick. If you actually care about your constitutional rights, hit that subscribe button right now. I'll wait. This channel is your front line for Second Amendment news, and you can't afford to miss a single update. Okay, subscribe button hit. Good. Let's get into it. So here's what's going on at the Supreme Court right now and why it matters directly to you. On March 2nd, 2026, the Supreme Court was busy hearing arguments in a major gun case called United States versus Hamani. That case is about whether the federal government can ban gun ownership for people who use marijuana, even in states where marijuana is legal. The justices sounded skeptical of the government's position, meaning they might actually be leaning toward loosening that restriction. But here's the twist. On that same day, the court refused to block a separate gun ban. The Supreme Court let stand a Maryland ruling that allows the state to take guns from people sentenced to more than 2 years in prison. 2 major gun stories, same day, completely opposite directions. That tells you exactly what's happening in the gun rights landscape right now. The courts are pulling the rope in 2 directions at the same time. They're expanding rights in some areas and shrinking them in others. And while all this drama plays out at the top, state-level gun bans are quietly stacking up below. Some already exist, some just kicked in. Some are about to hit in just a few months, and the guns on this list are the ones caught in the middle of all of it right now. Let me give you a quick bit of background before we get to the list because it makes everything else make sense. Back in 2022, the Supreme Court handed down a landmark ruling in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. That was a 623 decision. The court said that gun laws have to be judged against America's historical tradition. In other words, if a law has no roots in the founding era of this country, it probably can't stand. That ruling was supposed to make it harder for states to pass anti-gun laws, and in some places it has. But other states took that ruling as a challenge and doubled down harder than ever. Pause for a second. Do you think the states pushing these bans should be stopped by the courts? Drop a comment and let me know what you think. And while you're down there, smash that like button. It helps this channel keep fighting for your rights. That brings us to the 8 guns that are now illegal, restricted, or under serious threat in multiple states right now. These aren't hypotheticals. These aren't predictions. These are firearms that real gun owners are being told they can no longer buy, transfer, or in some cases even possess. Let's walk through them together, starting with the most well-known and ending with one that's going to genuinely shock you. The first gun on this list is the AR-15 and its variants. This is the most popular rifle in America, and it's now banned from sale, manufacture, and transfer in at least 10 states. We're talking about California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Connecticut, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Delaware, and Rhode Island, which just passed its new ban that takes effect July 1st, 2026. If you live in any of those states and you try to buy an AR-15 today, you're going to be turned away. If you already own one in some of these states, you may be required to register it or eventually surrender it. The AR-15 isn't just a target of these laws because it looks scary. It's a target because it's the most common modern rifle in America, and banning it sends the loudest possible message. The second gun is the AK-style rifle. Think the semi-automatic versions of the AK-47 or AK-74. These are banned in the same group of states that ban the AR-15. California's law bans them by name. New Jersey has a specific list of prohibited models that includes AK pattern rifles. New York's SAFE Act covers them under the feature test. That's where it gets interesting. The feature test means that if your semi-automatic rifle has a detachable magazine, and even just one specific feature like a folding stock, a pistol grip, or a thumbhole stock, it's classified as an assault weapon and banned. The gun doesn't have to be on a name list. It just has to hit that one feature trigger, and it's gone. The third gun is the semi-automatic pistol with restricted features. Most people don't know this one is even in the crosshairs. New Jersey specifically bans semi-automatic pistols that weigh more than 50 ounces when unloaded. New York and California also have feature-based rules that can turn a regular semi-automatic handgun into a banned weapon if it has certain accessories or stock configurations. So, if you live in these states and you've added certain modifications to your handgun, you might have crossed a legal line without even knowing it. The fourth gun is the .50 caliber rifle. Illinois, through the Protect Illinois Communities Act, people call it PAHA, specifically bans .50 caliber rifles and even .50 caliber cartridges. California also restricts .50 BMG rifles. These are long-range, high-powered rifles. They're expensive, they're specialized, and they're not exactly common at your local range, but they're on the banned list, and if you own one in those states, you're dealing with serious legal exposure. The point here isn't that millions of people own .50 cal rifles. The point is that the government drew a line and it moved the boundary for what's protected. Here's something about this case that even most gun rights channels are missing. In just a moment, I'm going to get to two guns on this list that almost nobody is talking about. But first, are notifications on? Turn them on right now, because when the courts issue new rulings on these bans, you're going to want to know immediately. The fifth gun on this list is the semi-automatic shotgun with certain features. Multiple states ban semi-automatic shotguns that have a detachable magazine combined with features like a folding stock, pistol grip, or thumbhole stock. This means a tactical semi-auto shotgun that you might have bought for home defense could now fall under a ban in your state. Delaware's assault weapons law specifically covers these. New York covers them under the Safe Acts feature test. California has prohibited certain configurations for years. The issue is that these shotguns are sold legally in free states, often marketed as home defense tools. But cross into one of these restrictive states with the wrong features, and you've got a problem. The sixth gun is the AR pistol with a brace. Now, this one has layers. The ATF, under the previous administration, issued a rule classifying pistol braces as stocks, which would have effectively turned millions of AR pistols into short-barreled rifles overnight. That rule got tied up in courts. But here's what still stands right now at the state level. California, New York, New Jersey, and several others either already covered these under their assault weapons definitions or have taken steps to close what they called the pistol brace loophole. An AR pistol in a banned state is still a banned weapon in most cases, brace or no brace, because the underlying firearm still triggers the feature test or the named model prohibition. The seventh gun is the high-capacity magazine itself. And yes, the magazine matters because it makes the gun illegal. Stay with me here because this is important. California bans magazines holding more than 10 rounds. Illinois bans magazines holding more than 10 rounds. New York bans magazines holding more than 10 rounds. Colorado bans magazines holding more than 15 rounds. When your gun comes standard with a magazine that exceeds those limits and you live in one of those states, your firearm is now categorized differently, and you're breaking the law just by possessing it. Think of the magazine as the switch that turns a legal gun into an illegal one. This is how the law traps otherwise law-abiding gun owners every single day. The eighth gun, and this is the one that's going to surprise you, is the revolving shotgun. Specifically, in Rhode Island's new law, which was signed and takes effect July 1st, 2026, doesn't just ban semi-automatic rifles. It specifically names revolving shotguns as prohibited firearms. That is unusual. That is a gun that most people have never even thought about as a political target. And yet, there it is written right into the new law. The revolving shotgun ban in Rhode Island is a sign of what's coming. These new laws aren't just going after the guns that show up in news coverage. They're broadening the definitions, widening the net, and catching firearms that gun owners never expected to be in the crosshairs. Now, let's talk about what all of this means for you going forward, because the legal landscape isn't done shifting. The Bruen ruling from 2022 was supposed to change everything. And in some courts, it is working. A federal court struck down the DC magazine ban just days ago in March 2026. ruling that commonly owned magazines are protected by the Second Amendment. That's a real win. But here's what most people are missing. Winning a court case doesn't automatically change the law in your state overnight. It takes more litigation, more appeals, more years. And in the meantime, the bans are still active. The police are still enforcing them. You can still be arrested. The Illinois assault weapons ban under PA is being challenged right now in the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals and has connections to cases waiting for Supreme Court attention. Gun rights groups have been asking the Supreme Court to step in and strike down the Illinois law. So far, the court has let the lower court process play out. If the Supreme Court eventually takes up an assault weapons ban case directly, it could change the entire map at once. That would be the biggest Second Amendment ruling since Bruin. But that decision hasn't come yet, and until it does, those 10 states can keep enforcing their bans. There's also a massive battle brewing over what the term commonly owned actually means. The Bruin test says the government can't ban weapons that are in common use by law-abiding citizens. The AR-15 is the best-selling rifle in America. There are an estimated 20 million or more of them in civilian hands. Gun rights lawyers argue that makes it the most commonly owned rifle in the country, which should make it constitutionally protected under the Bruin standard. Anti-gun states argue that it doesn't matter how many there are. If the weapon is especially dangerous, it can still be banned. That debate is going to drive court cases for the next several years, and the outcome will determine whether these bans survive or fall. Now, let's get personal, because this is where it actually hits your life. Let me walk you through 3 realistic situations that real gun owners are facing right now. Imagine you just moved from Texas to New Jersey for a new job. You brought your AR-15 with you because you've owned it legally for years. You kept it in your safe. You've never fired it at anything except paper targets. The moment you crossed into New Jersey with that rifle, you became a felon under state law. You didn't know. Nobody told you at the moving company. Your real estate agent didn't mention it, and now you're sitting on a time bomb in your own home. This scenario is happening to real people right now. The safe move is always to research your destination state's gun laws before you move, not after. Here's the second scenario. You live in Illinois, and you own an AR-15 that you bought before the Protect Illinois Communities Act kicked in. You're grandfathered in, right? Not exactly. The law requires registration, and the rules around what you can do with that registered gun and what happens to it when you sell or transfer it are complicated. If you move out of state and then move back, you may have lost your grandfathered status. If you let a family member handle the gun without going through the right steps, you may have committed an illegal transfer. The grandfather clause sounds like protection, but it's full of landmines that can still get you in trouble. The third scenario is one that most gun owners in free states never think about. You're traveling. You've got your rifle in a case in the trunk, locked, unloaded, following federal transportation guidelines. You drive through Maryland on the way from Virginia to Pennsylvania. Maryland has an assault weapons ban. Federal law under the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986 gives you protection when you're transporting a firearm through a state where it's otherwise illegal, as long as you're traveling directly from a place where it's legal to a place where it's legal. But directly is the key word. If you stop, if you stay overnight in Maryland, if you take a detour, you may lose that federal protection. And state police in some of these states have not been shy about making arrests. Now let's clear up 3 myths that are spreading fast on the internet right now, because getting this wrong could genuinely cost you your freedom. The first myth is that the Supreme Court's Bruin ruling already made all these bans unconstitutional. It didn't. Bruin set a new standard, but it didn't automatically strike down every state law that exists right now. Every single one of these bans has to be challenged individually in court. It has to survive appeals, and it may eventually get to the Supreme Court before it's actually struck down. Bruin is a framework, not a magic wand. Think of it like a new referee showing up to the game with a new rule book. The old fouls are still being called until the referee walks over to that specific play and blows the whistle. The referee hasn't walked over to every play yet. The bans are still in effect. The second myth is that if you can still find these guns for sale at a gun store, they must be legal in your state. That's dangerously wrong. Some dealers make mistakes. Some operate near state lines and primarily serve customers from other states. Some are selling guns that are legal in their state, but not yours. The store selling it to you is not your legal protection. You are responsible for knowing your state's laws. But the gun store sold it to me is not a defense that holds up in court. Never assume legality based on availability. The third myth is that these laws only target criminals. So, as long as you're law-abiding, you have nothing to worry about. That's exactly backwards. These laws specifically target gun owners who have never committed a crime in their lives. They take a firearm that you bought legally, registered, and stored responsibly, and they reclassify it as illegal with a stroke of a pen. That's the whole point. Law-abiding gun owners are the ones these bans hit hardest because criminals don't follow registration laws or care about feature tests. The people most at risk from these laws are people like you. Remember that because it's the truth, and the truth matters here. Let's bring this home because you've stuck with this through a lot of information and you deserve a clear summary of what you actually need to take away from all of this. There are 3 things to lock in before you walk away from this video. First, the 8 guns we covered today. The AR-15 and its variants. The AK-style rifle, the restricted semi-automatic pistol, the .50 caliber rifle, the feature-prohibited semi-automatic shotgun, the AR pistol in banned states, the firearm paired with a high-capacity magazine, and the revolving shotgun in Rhode Island. These are all either already banned or facing active new restrictions right now in March 2026. This isn't future speculation. This is the current law of the land in specific states today. Second, the courts are fighting back, but the fight is slow and uneven. The DC magazine ban just got struck down. Illinois' ban is being actively challenged. The Supreme Court is hearing multiple gun cases this term and next term. The legal tide may be turning, but it hasn't turned yet. You can't bet your freedom on a court outcome that hasn't happened. You have to know what the law says today in your state because that's what you're living under right now. Third, and this is the most important thing, your ignorance of the law will not protect you. It never has. It never will. If you own any of the firearms we talked about today, you need to know exactly what your state says about them. You need to know what the rules are for transport, transfer, registration, and storage. This isn't paranoia. This is the same responsibility you take on when you get behind the wheel of a car. You learn the traffic laws where you drive, you learn the gun laws where you live and where you travel, and you update that knowledge every time the laws change because right now they are changing fast. Here's the bottom line on all of this. The Second Amendment was written to be permanent. It was written to protect your right to keep and bear arms from exactly the kind of government overreach we're watching happen in these states right now. But rights aren't self-enforcing. They require informed citizens who know them, who fight for them, and who refuse to give them up through ignorance or apathy. That's why you're here. That's why this channel exists. And that's why every video we put out matters to you and to your family and to the generation coming up behind you. The fight for your rights doesn't end. It just moves to the next courtroom, the next legislature, and the next election. This is just the beginning. Subscribe so you're ready when the next major ruling drops. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 8 guns surprised you the most, or which state you think is going to be the next one to pass a new ban. I read every comment.